Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. Leon Wolf is out with a concussion, so filling in for him is me. I'm Fancy Bill McMorris. I work for the Washington Free Beacon, and I'm joined today by my co-panelist, Jeff Blehar of the Ace and Spades Decision Desk, and we have subbing in for our entire posts, the rest of the panel who went totally AWOL today. We have Heather Wilhelm of the Federalist. Say hi, Heather.
Hey.
We will all be on our best behavior tonight because we are in the presence of a lady. We also have Saffron, contributor and writer for the Federalist. You can check him out. Great article today on entitlements. And the man behind the screen, we got Joe Cunningham of Red State, and we thank him for actually taking time out of his busy day to participate in this bumble F of a panel. So, moving right along, of course, we're going to start with the debate, which I totally did not watch because I was watching the Mets get embarrassed. So, Heather, fill me in. What actually happened over on CNBC?
You know, you missed. I actually liked the debate, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Although, you're watching this thing, and you've got to wonder, if you're just an average, well-adjusted, happy American, I don't see how you'd last more than 5 minutes in that thing. It was just, you mean as a candidate or as somebody who was watching from home? Was it that detestable? Well, look, again, I enjoyed it, but I recognize that I'm kind of weird. There was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of crosstalk. There was a lot of insanity. I mean, there were a couple bright, shining moments, but most of them involved the candidates yelling at the moderators and the crowd getting really excited about that. But, I mean, as a whole, it was a complete debacle. I can't figure out whether it was a debacle that helps the GOP because the whole moderation was so bad, or whether anyone tuning in would say, this is insane, I'm never voting for anyone ever again, and clicking off. So that's my take. I actually support that take, generally. Sean, you were at the bar watching the game with me. Do you want to pretend that you watched the debate?
Yeah, I have some pretend thoughts I came up with in the half an hour before we started here. And my big thought from what Heather said was that who is watching these that aren't political junkies and aren't media people and aren't super turned in and already have made up their decision? That's what I don't get. Who would tune into who tunes into CNBC for anything other than those creepy prison shows and the Shark Tank on weekday nights? So if they're just missing their Shark Tank episode, do you think they're going to actually hang around to watch? I mean, I guess Donald Trump makes it a little bit more appetizing, but I find it hard to believe that anyone who's not already made up their mind is tuning into a Wednesday night debate against the World Series being on TV.
Now, Jeff, can you talk about this? Why in the world? The World Series is set at a fixed date. It's the most Republican sport in the world. 80% of the athletes are registered Republicans. The crowd is made up of old white people, so they're almost all Republicans. Can we talk about the failure that was this debate, not only the scheduling, but the choice of moderators and all of that?
Well, okay.
Since you're the only one who watched.
No, well, first of all, actually, it's the World Series that stepped on the deck of the debate, because the debate schedule was set long in advance, whereas the World Series was was rather contingent. If the NLCS had gone to 7 games instead of the Mets just sweeping the Cubs out of the building, the World Series would not have begun at the same time. It would have begun a little bit later. So you can't really blame the RNC for that. You can blame them for a whole hell of a lot of other decisions that were made in this respect. First of which was allowing CNBC to host a debate in the first place. Of course, and the next one was allowing everybody's favorite punching bag today, John J. Harwood of the New York Times and CNBC, to moderate the damn thing. He made a clown of himself, and I guess everybody who's been following along on Twitter is well aware of just how badly he did. He's been really amusing today, tweeting these rather woe is me statements saying like, oh, I understand now the challenges that Paul Ryan will face and that John Boehner had to deal with this horrible, unruly Republican monster caucus. And I'm just like, fucking get over yourself, man. I mean, it's just so self-pitying and self-martyring. One other thing, by the way, to respond to something Sean said, who watches these debates? Well, I mean, I don't know if, how many people in this country are political junkies, but I will tell you this. At least 15 million people tuned in to watch this debate, okay? Now that's notably less than tuned into the first two debates. Part of that is because it's the third debate and there are diminishing returns, and another part of that is because it's on CNBC and it was a clown show. But that's 15 million people. That's a lot of people. Most of them are obviously Republican primary voters, and so they're the ones who are the most important to reach. It did get an audience, and so it does matter how people perceive the way the Republicans handle themselves. I thought they had a good night, and I thought this kind of goes to what Heather sort of glanced towards earlier on when she was saying this. I think they had a good night simply because they looked unified. For once, for the first time in this entire campaign, which has been otherwise a really kind of just like a bitter, downer of a campaign, really divisive and unpleasant, they got together just like they got together in 2012 to join in the one thing that can still bring every single person up on that stage together, which is booting around the mainstream media like they're like one of those buzkashi, sewn-up goat carcasses that the Afghans play their sport with. They literally dragged their body all over the stage last night, and it was thrilling, and it was actually invigorating. I was sitting there watching the debate with a friend. Unlike you and Sean, Bill, I'm a loser, and my friend is a loser, so we didn't watch baseball last night. We watched the stupid debate. And we were actually hooting. Now, I am not a Ted Cruz fan. My friend is not a Ted Cruz fan either, but when he laid the fucking smackdown on those stupid moderators by like literally just running through all the dumb questions that had been asked all the previous candidates, and then turned up and said, "You guys have to start asking us substantive questions." I actually applauded in our living room, which is something that I'm not usually going to do for debate rhetoric. It was a really exciting moment, Cruz's best moment of this entire campaign cycle, I think. And I think the entire panel came off looking a lot better than they might otherwise have done, just because they all, except for Jeb Bush, we'll get to that in a moment, except with his exception, they all seem to unify in their loathing and their contempt for the media.
Joe, sounds like you did more clapping than Bill did all night last night.
What did you say, John?
Sounds like you did more clapping than Bill did all night last night.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, I'm rooting for the Royals.
I told you not to talk about that, Sean. You can't just, when you see a grown man cry, you're supposed to keep it to yourself. So
you gotta, the Mets scored that first run, got up early, and, so you must have been happy for a little while, at least.
That's going to be all right. Dan Murphy's going to hit 14 home runs. We'll get to baseball in just a second. Joe, I understand the Republican need to unite and bash the mainstream media. It reminds me of, a stepfather walking into a drunken Irish reunion and all the kids who were previously fighting just, unite to go blast him. Does that come off looking kind of petty and childish, though, if, Republicans just go down to the standard trope? Or was last night so egregious? Harwood specifically, the way he treated all the candidates was last night so egregious that the American public will side with the GOP in this case.
What I'm thinking is that Reince Priebus is possibly the greatest tactician in all of military history because he knew exactly what his opponents were going to do, and that was walk into the makeup room and tell the makeup artist, I want to look exactly like the Republicans picture me. And so the makeup artist got the white face paint and got the red rubber nose, and they went to work. And what we got was the clown show that every Republican-based voter considers the media to be. And whether Reince planned that or whether he is just the luckiest son of a bitch around, I think he deserves a lot of credit for making something so awesome out of something that was, frankly, so terrible. Is it too whiny to attack the moderators and attack the media? In this case, I don't think so, because you have even Think Progress and a bunch of other lefty groups saying, wow, this was awful. So I think in this case it's okay to have that trope. I mean, Ron Fournier on Twitter said, we earned this. So I don't think it goes too far in this case to say, to bash the media, because the media did a damn bad job at it.
Did Think Progress actually criticize the moderation of the debate? Did I hear you right?
Yeah, they did. Dominich linked it last night on Twitter and in the transom today.
That's amazing.
Like Politico, Think Progress, all these groups were like, wow, this was
I mean,
terrible.
I expect it from Politico. I mean, but Think Progress is an explicitly Democratic operation. I wouldn't think they'd want to cut us any breaks at all. That's amazing.
Now, Heather, the Federalist actually picked up on this days ago. Molly Hemingway wrote, from what I saw, was the first piece saying Harwood was totally unqualified to host this debate because he's so far in the tank. Did you guys pay him to fulfill all of your fever dreams?
You know, Molly had a great post on Facebook. She said, you know, I think I'm going to start betting on horses because it came out exactly like she called it. I think her piece ran on Monday, and the title was something like, you know, John Harwood is totally unfit to be the moderator of this debate, and she was completely right. And, you know, she went through his past, you know, obvious left-wing hackery, and he pretty much, you know, fulfilled that vision, which was amazing. There were a couple key, I think, important moments in the debate that managed to shine throughout the, you know, the weirdness. One was that Donald Trump managed to come off as a somewhat normal person, which was incredible. John Kasich was sort of the yelling, angry old man. You could tell he feels like he doesn't have a whole lot of time left and has to get it all out. And, you know, and then there was a great Jeb Rubio moment, right? You know, John Harwood goes after Marco Rubio about his Senate votes, which, by the way, nobody cares about. No American cares about this. And Rubio bats him off, gets a massive applause line by accusing John Harwood of being unfair and being a biased media hack. And then Jeb Bush comes after him. Amazing. One of the most tone-deaf things I've seen in politics. Rubio's the champion. The crowd loves him. And Jeb just tries to take this jab that utterly fails. I think we are witnessing the end of the Jeb Bush campaign. That's my guess.
Now, Sean, I'm going to go to Sean real quick, unless you have something that...
No, go ahead first.
So, you know, when we were talking about how it was good to see the party united, I think the one person who stood out as, you know, trying to land some incoherent punches and flailing and missing completely was Jeb here. And, you know, you had Danny Diaz, his campaign manager, man, I, you know, completely respect, banging on the door at CNBC, you know, slamming them and yelling at them and, you know, raving about how they needed to get him on screen more. How would you rate Jeb's performance and the fallout afterwards? I mean, the guillotine seems to be looming above him the same way it was for Rick Perry in the waning days of his campaign.
Yeah, and Walker before him. I mean, these stories always start and then they slowly build steam and they get reinforced that they're the guy that's going to drop out next, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit. I don't think Jeb did any favors, though, when he goes after, like Heather described, the guy who's doing well and winning the crowd. And it was so canned and pre-planned. And I think Rick Wilson tweeted about it 2 hours beforehand and said, well, this guy's going to make a poor decision. And what I thought was great was right afterward, if you go back and watch it, he cannot handle when it doesn't land. He's uncomfortable making it, and then it doesn't land, and his face almost contorts into this, like, crying Boehner face in a way. And it did not look pretty, and then he seemed off the rest of the way, is what I saw of clips later of him, you know, meandering through things and not really being there.
He does that ghoulish, like Jared from Subway smile, where he's like, and then he holds his hands together like this, and he holds them down like that, and it's almost like the body language is, as Trump might say, very low energy, and it is. Here's what I think. I don't know who it was. It was Chris Cillizza who said it. It's like, you know, how do you know things are really bad for Jeb this morning? It's because the prevailing attitude that people have after it all blew over last night was sympathy. We just feel bad for the guy at this point. He hates what he's doing. He hates the job. He doesn't like the campaign. He's certainly dismayed. I mean, he's being humiliated at this point by his younger protege. And there's just... First, Trump made a monkey out of him in the first two debates. And then Rubio, you know, who he created in so many words. I mean, let's not be you know, wrong about this here. Marco Rubio was a creation of Jeb Bush. Marco Rubio became Speaker of the Florida House because Jeb Bush was his patron in Florida back in the 90s. everything that Marco Rubio has, he owes to Jeb, including getting people on board to endorse him. When he was running a guerrilla insurgent campaign against Charlie Crist for the Senate back in 2010. Bush hated Crist and was more than happy to secretly back Marco Rubio before Rubio took off. So, like, there's a lot of history between the two of them, and it was just really painful to see him fall completely on his face on the debate stage there. But then again, you can't have too much sympathy because he should have known better. He should have known better than to get involved with the Jedi Master, which is what Marco Rubio is in this case. One other thing I want to say is that the other winner of last night's debate was, we talk about Marco Rubio, but I don't think we talk about the other guy who really did himself a lot of favors, and that was Lincoln Chafee, who I thought really kind of distinguished himself once again in a performance where he wasn't there. He made me Ted Cruz. I thought actually, and I don't like.
I was going to say, Jeff. His name's Rand Paul.
Rand Paul. Talk about a guy. That guy with bad body language. You should have seen the way he was just leaning on his lectern the entire time. He was crossing his legs. He looked like a guy who was standing outside a bar smoking a cigarette, waiting for his friends to come out so they could go home. It was the most impatient, angry, completely fed up body language you can imagine, and it basically encapsulates his frustration with what's happened in his campaign too.
Did you all notice, speaking of Ted Cruz, did you all notice that I agree, he had a strong performance there, but there were a couple of weird moments where he would answer questions with this sort of non sequitur about single mothers. He just went on and on and on about single mothers, and you got the sense that he had gone through some, focus group that told him, come on, Ted, we got to soften you up a little bit. So there's a little bit of weirdness there. He went on a little too long on something that was a little too forced. Otherwise I would agree. He did a pretty strong performance.
I don't know if
I want to jump in, and I want to say, going back to Jeb, I think there's like two defining moments here. I think Donald Trump should apologize for attacking my wife. No. Okay. I think Marco Rubio should resign. No. Okay. Like, he just gives up. His attack doesn't land. He just stops. He doesn't follow through. He doesn't do anything on it. And that is and it's like we said, that defeated look where the hands come together. There's a brilliantly put together Vine on it that I'm going to have to relink later, but it just kind of embodies that body language, the look, the hands folding together. You can tell he's just done. And maybe he is just kind of waiting out the campaign, letting it die a natural death, but maybe if he's fighting, there's a reason why Trump fans are there. If that's fighting to Jeb Bush, then we can see why people find Trump more appealing. Like, that is not fighting. That is turning the other cheek, and that was good for Jesus. That's not so good for Jeb Bush in a Republican presidential campaign with a star-studded field.
Yeah, I think what you see is I think he's a little torn. I think he feels like he has to run for it because it's his job to be president and fulfill the family destiny and do all that. And at the same time, he has to go out there and do these attacks on people like Marco and try and put up with a guy like Trump who he totally has no respect for. It makes me wonder if the whole talk of him being the joyous candidate and the one who could fight happily, if that all wasn't kind of talk to himself to pump himself up.
That's actually a really good insight. That's actually a really good point. I always thought that whole joyous campaign, falderall that he mouthed at the beginning of the cycle was maybe another way of saying that he didn't want to have to go through the normal rounds of negative campaigning and nastiness that, the inanities that, we all understand have sort of seized presidential campaign cycles for the last at least 4 or 5 times around the bend. He was, to my mind, he was clearly just deluding himself. I mean, it was as delusional as when he said, I need to lose the primary in order to win the presidential race. Remember that line?
Never say that during the primary.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'm like, okay, if you lose the primary, guess what? You're not going to be in the presidential race, so I don't even understand. I just think he's a good man who's completely been passed by, but he's not giving up yet. I was just talking to somebody who was telling me that there is going to be some blood left on the floor in the upcoming days between Jeb World and Marco World. he's fighting, and maybe it's just because he's stubborn and he doesn't want to go, and he feels like it's beneath his dignity to be forced out by this young upstart. But I wish he would, but he doesn't seem like he's going to go quietly, at least not yet. Maybe he'll have a change of heart.
So, Heather, do you think that's the path Jeb takes? He kind of, is watching the rest of the closing days, if that's what we're in fact in, of Jeb Bush's campaign. Is that going to be like watching Mike Tyson fighting in 03 and 04, and he just comes back and this once great, heroic man 2 decades past is now just getting knocked out by Irish journeymen?
Or is he going to bite off Marco Rubio's ear?
That was late 90s. He was still in his prime then.
Hey, there's a lot of ear to grab there.
Yeah, exactly.
And we still have the phase tattoo phase too, so there's a lot of excitement that could come. But I agree with Jeff. I think Jeb Bush comes across as just a really nice man, and you see him up there on the debate screen, and it's so clear he just does not want to be there. And I'm not entirely sure why he's up there. I don't know what's going on in his mind, but he just seems like his heart's not in it. I have a hard time believing he'd go out slugging, but you never know. This has been an interesting race. It's hard to predict. And the news broke tonight that this huge memo leaked right out of Team Jeb that says some pretty not nice things about Marco Rubio. It also insults the voters. It says the voters are all ADD, which I can't imagine is going to go over well. So it could just wither away. I don't see him going out slugging, but hey, you never know. This has been full of surprises, right?
See, call me paranoid, but I think these leaks from the Jeb campaign, like, they play right into Rubio's hands. Like, it's almost a little too coordinated. Like, let's transition the Florida donor base over to Rubio in the smoothest transition possible. Yeah, Jeb's not going to look great at the end of it, but Jeb has really nothing to lose anymore. This is kind of his last shot as a politician. He's not currently holding office. He doesn't really have anything left to really go for. And so why not just kind of transition the money over behind the scenes while making the attacks that has the base go over to him as well? Because they know the base hates the establishment pig that is Jeb Bush. So why not attack Rubio and have the base realize, okay, that's who they're afraid of. Let's go support Rubio and transition the money over. That's a paranoid tinfoil hat theory, but I think it's just as feasible as any other campaign strategy you might think that Jeb has at this point.
It's an elegant theory. I like conspiracy theories like that, and I would almost be inclined to give it some credit if it weren't for the fact that, again, I'm reliably informed by people in Florida politics that there's going to be some real nasty shit breaking between these two campaigns in the next few days. That doesn't sound like it's fake.
Yeah, that theory is like believing that the grassy knoll shooter shot himself in the foot instead of Kennedy. Pretty much.
There's valid evidence for that, Bill, and I will email that to you.
Mute him. Somebody mute him. Sean, you believe the moon landing was faked. Tell us, how would you rate this up there?
I would have trouble believing it for all the things that I dislike about Jeb Bush's kind of milquetoast politics. I do think he is a kind of guy who wouldn't go ask for people for $100 million and mislead them into giving him all that to then turn around and just run a guerrilla operation for Marco Rubio.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty expensive one. Yeah.
As much as I want to believe it, I think it would be brilliant, but...
Yeah, 2 House of Cards-y then?
Yes.
It's like selfless House of Cards.
Yeah.
And actually compelling rather than what House of Cards is. So I guess moving on now, I don't really have a segue.
Well, can I just ask one question of everyone here before we do that? Okay, well then I'm going to ask it anyways because I'm the one who's really calling the shots on the show today. Is everybody else as amused as I am in retrospect about how much Jeb was set up to be the unstoppable, completely juggernaut-like, world-beating frontrunner? When he first announced, all the media chatter was like, oh, game over, it's done, he's going to win. And when that initially happened, I just rolled my eyes. I was like, no, this is, I don't know why people are saying this. And I actually wondered to myself, well, am I just too naive? Do I not know this game enough? Am I missing something? But no, I mean, I was proven completely right. Did anybody else have any doubts? Is anybody else surprised at how bad?
No, I mean, I remember back on the show in February saying I didn't see Jeb lasting past Florida. I didn't see him winning any primaries at all, and that always seemed to be the case for me. I guess piggybacking off of that does that represent a departure from the traditional GOP? I guess procedure where we always tap the next guy in line, the most senior guy that's waiting.
Well, that would be Rick Santorum, I believe. So thank God.
There you go.
Guys, it's just typical liberal media bias. They knew that Hillary on their side had it all locked up, so they assume that the Republican primary must be the exact same thing. Why not?
And they also desperately wanted a Clinton versus Bush matchup, not only for the wonderful narratives that it would help them spin. I mean, it's just like wonderful writing, battle of the dynasts and all that, but also because they know full well, just as we do, that comparison would have heavily favored a Clinton. Because, hey, if you're going to think about the Clinton years versus the Bush years, America would vote for the Clinton years.
Yeah, I don't think a whole lot of people bought that, the whole, the coronation of Jeb. And it is interesting, though, because you're right, the press did exactly that. I think most people have always sort of thought of Jeb as maybe their guy in the back pocket. If things get a little too crazy, there's always Jeb. You can always fall back on that dude. But I don't think he's ever been anybody's... Who wants another Clinton Bush, aside from, as you said, the press? It's nuts,
So Bush in this sort of scenario, and I can see why he's lashing out at the voters, but he's the nice girl. He's the nice guy who's been best friends with the cute girl in school carrying her books and stuff, and she totally blows him off for the guy who plays football, and he lashes out at her. Is that what we're going to see out of Jeb here, Joe?
He's a Taylor Swift song, absolutely. Jeb Bush's campaign is a Taylor Swift song. Good night, everybody.
Drop the mic. Get out of here.
We are never, ever going out with Jeb again. All right.
So, wow, that's fantastic. Huh.
I like the dedication to the showmanship here. He's really gone.
Yeah, he really did leave.
That's
He's not really gone. He just turned his camera off.
That's the George Costanza right there.
He did do a mic drop, though.
Here's a question, though. I think the answer to that question is, what's Jeb's plan B, right? Does he need this, or does he not? Does he have an alternate life that he can jump out and be happy with? Can he just
can go back to Wall Street if he wants? He was extremely successful there.
I don't think he needs this, unlike some people, like Hillary Clinton, who desperately needs it. It's soaking into her veins. I could just see him kind of happily being like, okay, that didn't work out. That's fine. I don't know. I just don't see the fire in him.
I would think he doesn't want to burn too many bridges for his own son, who just started his political career and climb and has a lot of assets in his back pocket, and shouldn't burn it all and completely take the name into the ground by going out in this kamikaze mission on Marco Rubio, who's one of your up-and-coming stars of the party.
Nice. I mean, that's a very good point. And I also just noticed I have the same cross in my bedroom. It's pretty sweet. Good job, CIC.
I twisted it just so you could see it. So
there you go. Speaking of media narratives, we were supposed to hear about how dysfunctional the Republican Party was in Washington, D.C. and nationwide. That's kind of been the narrative that everyone's been chalking up. They've used the speaker race, which I've always dismissed as, an insider baseball-y non-story, to kind of hype this up. And the second everyone coalesced around Paul Ryan, it kind of seems like that's over. And the fact that the party is, even at the debates last night, Jeb aside, they were all seem pretty unified against the media. Am I crazy for thinking maybe we haven't destroyed ourselves and won't melt down?
Yeah, you're crazy. I mean, this destruction is ever on the nuclear clock on the Republican Party is always about a minute from midnight. I think this is something we've understood over the last basically since 2011, since we took power back after the Tea Party election. But I did find it very funny that the entire House Freedom Caucus, I think, with the exception of 7 members voted for Paul Ryan. There were 9 total votes against Paul Ryan. 2 of those came from outside of the Freedom Caucus. Alex Massey, I think, and Walter Jones, 2 very, very kind of like idiosyncratic guys. But everybody else voted for Ryan. And it's a good sign. It's a hopeful sign. It certainly does lay complete waste to the idea of, Republican disunity. I mean, Dave Weigel, give him credit, has been all over this for the last week or so. He's like, how dumb does the entire, Republicans are self-destructing by failing to immediately elect Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House narrative look now? When we not only, got rid of McCarthy, who was, let's be clear about this, was really just basically a chump, and upgraded massively with Paul Ryan, who is a legitimately visionary and charismatic guy, whatever else your thoughts and flaws about him are. We actually, maybe you could say the House Freedom Caucus did us all a solid, and I'm very reluctant to admit that because I'm not really a fan of sometimes the way they conduct business, but at the end of the day, seems like we had a pretty good outcome here.
Well, think about the fact that that entire narrative collapsed. What did they go for? They focused on Paul Ryan's words and his vote on the budget deal. And, this is a big scandal or whatever. The conservatives are not going to be happy here. Nobody said a word. Nobody said a word. It's not a story. If anything, Paul Ryan may have the debate last night to thank for that, but there's been nothing on it. The budget deal is come and gone. It's over. It's not a story anymore. So Paul Ryan is smooth sailing from here on out. There's nothing to really challenge right now. There's no narrative around to support this disunity in the House GOP caucus, and the media is kind of scratching their heads at this point. I don't know. They don't know what story to write about the GOP right now because there's no controversy within it.
Now, Heather, you had thrown your hat in the ring in the speaker's race and didn't get any votes on in Congress, but I've heard that you're going to launch an insurgent campaign. What's your goal here?
No. I'm staying in Texas, and I'm not setting foot anywhere near there. But that brings up an excellent point, because I think what's important to remember is nobody, how many Americans ever knew who John Boehner was, right? Your average American had no idea who this dude was. Nobody. I mean, you have to be so into politics to know this, and so it's so funny to see this trumped-up media, hyping him. But what's interesting about Paul Ryan is people do know who he is. He's got his own Tumblr where he's like lifting weights, and people think he's all sexy.
It's Paul Ryan.
It's interesting. This might be a really interesting PR coup for the GOP, because this is a very visible guy in a position that most Americans previously just didn't care about or pay any attention to. So I would be very curious to see how this plays out with his leadership as just as a PR coup. I think it could be great.
Now, Sean, Nancy Pelosi has Botox needles that are older than Paul Ryan. Is this going to, help or hurt him, his relative youth? He's only been in for what, 4.5 terms now? 5 terms?
No, he's been in a solid 15 years or something.
Is he
he was elected when he was 20.
So 7 terms then. Okay. Yeah. So what do you think age plays a factor here?
Oh, yeah. I think across the board we exemplify a much younger, more vibrant party that it contrasts well with, the dean of the House today that swore Paul Ryan in was John Conyers. He's only the dean because Dingell finally retired, who was almost 90 or something, had served for 50 or 60 years. And Dingell is, right on his heels with 49 years. These guys are all fossils. Their leadership's all over 70. The presidential candidates are all over 65. It's a great contrast. I do think that it's a little bit overhyped, though, that Paul Ryan is going to change a lot. Basically, what we did in this deal was capitulate to Obama's retirement and let him get out the door with no other hurdles in his way. There's no other. I think that Boehner said, I'm the only person who had to negotiate with Obama, and you won't have to deal with this. He's impossible to negotiate with because he's such an ideological lefty that he cleared the barn for Paul Ryan, as he put it, and gave him no chance to go into a negotiation with with Obama and see if anyone else could have a different outcome. And I guess Paul Ryan accepted that as better than the alternative, but you really got an unchained Obama on his way towards the door. And I know you could have said maybe he was unchained before, but there's really nothing to stop him from doing anything he wants right now.
Understood. Well, that sounds depressing. Is anyone else less depressed, or is it just me? I'm pretty happy guy.
I'm not depressed because I'm in a period of acceptance right now, so nothing disappoints me.
I wouldn't call it depression. I would just say it's more of it's like a calculated, I think they really need to win the presidency now, or else you've done all this for nothing. If you don't have a Republican president to help Paul Ryan out in 2017, actually put him to use, you just have him arguing with Hillary, and it's really a waste of a talent.
Is it a waste of a majority in its own way? I mean, these are some of the steepest majorities the Republicans have had, and the accomplishments are, not much to write home about. So
all majorities are wasted without the presidency in this modern era. That's a simple fact.
And how do you fix that, though? We're not going.
You don't fix that. We're too polarized right now as a country for it to be any other way. Majority, the era of, say, like Reagan, where you could have, the Republicans hold the presidency, but the Democrats hold the House and the Senate, and yet still things get done. Or Clinton, even, where the Republicans held the House and the Senate, and Clinton was in office, got stuff done. That's gone. It's long gone. There's going to be no cross-partisan cooperation. The only way substantive legislation at this point is ever going to get passed is via either unified control over all three, House, Senate, presidency, or a coup, basically. Some sort of constitutional revolution that would change the structure of our government, which, God help us, we don't want to see. But you got to have all three now. And it's as simple as that. And if you have all three, you don't need a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate anymore. I predict that if the Republicans win the presidency, filibuster's going to die like that. They're just going to kick it to the curb. It's already dead. It's just waiting to be pushed over. But you do need all three. So the presidency is all that matters. And that's what I think a lot of people who are really upset about how the Republicans haven't accomplished anything in Congress don't seem to realize that they were never going to really get much of anything done or even be able to stop much of what Obama wanted to do until they had the presidency.
So does this represent the death of the institutionalist? The guy who's serving the Senate for the Senate's sake and the House.
Oh, absolutely it does, I think.
So, Heather, where do we go from there? If we're in a post-institutionalist society, does it come down to straight party politics or straight ideology?
That is a great question. I'm not so much.
Very many of them. So.
Short answer, I don't know, but I'm not quite so filled with despair here. I think this election is going to be very telling. Hillary Clinton is a horrific candidate. If we can toss up someone halfway decent against her, it'll be. I think 2016 is going to be a great indicator of the mood of the country, and also a great indicator of the health of our government. So I'm not throwing in the towel just yet. I think we kind of have to wait and see how this all works out.
Understood. Well, I am depressed for far different reasons. We're going to move on to baseball now. The Mets are down 2-0 to the Royals, which is fine. We were down 2-0 against the Red Sox in '86, and you saw how that worked out. And we were down 2-0 to the Yankees in 2000, and you saw how that worked out. So, yeah, nobody should be depressed.
How much of the roster is still on from the '86 team?
Our third base coach.
Okay, good.
So, anyway, just wanted to talk for about 20 minutes, if you guys could mute your mics, about what I see turning around this baseball team. And I think it starts with Noah Syndergaard.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much for your monologue, Bill. We have had a wonderful show tonight on PHF. I'll stop.
So
if I can interrupt, actually, the one thing that's really going to turn around this team is probably the Royals.
Good one. You suck. Anyway, going back to real topics at hand.
Bill, now that you're done, I had a 10-minute monologue about Big Ben's return to the Steelers this weekend.
Oh, he got out of prison already? He's going to be playing with the ankle bracelet or without?
Allegedly, Bill, allegedly.
I kind of wanted to hear what Bill had to say about Noah Syndergaard. I won't lie. So what were you going to say, man?
Oh man, I'm calling it now. He's going to throw not just one but two perfect games to win the World Series. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be record breaking. So today is October 29th. I just looked that up. We have Halloween coming up in 2 days, and I just wanted to, if we could do this Fox News debate thing here. Who here is dressing up in a costume? Just raise your hand. Heather, what sexy thing are you going to be dressed as? Just like a can of peas or something?
My costume is very lazy. It's a witch's hat. That's my costume, but it's pretty solid.
So does that mean you're walking with your kids?
Yeah. My kids are vampire bats, and I felt like it was disrespectful to not. I also have a cape with like a spooky hood that I might wear.
That's actually really cute. Your kids is vampire bats. I mean, it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, there's three matching vampire bats. Last year I was Amelia Earhart, which was a really easy costume. You just like put goggles on your head, and then you put a scarf on.
And then no one sees you again.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was Amelia Earhart / dad going out to get cigarettes from the store one last time. Just left them on a stoop.
It was
So I was in the party store last week to get some stuff for the costumes, and it took me an hour to find everything I needed to, because every single thing in the store came in men's sizes and adult sizes instead of kids sizes, which I feel like is a very big departure from years past. So I just wanted to get, I guess, Sean, we'll start with you. Get your take on, why is it that adults are taking over and commandeering, what has always been known as a kid's holiday?
Well, I think the easy comment is this Arrested Development, perpetual adolescence kind of cultural thing we have. But I think honestly that I've lived here in D.C., and when you are a young single guy and you go out for Halloween, it's really easy time to go out. And if you can get in 2 or 3 or 4 nights out where people are dressed up, it's the biggest icebreaker ever. And that was the one thing I always enjoyed about Halloween. As a single guy in a city, you could just walk up to people, oh, cute costume, and oh, well, yep, my name's Sean, blah, 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 blah. It was the easiest icebreaker out there. I think that's why people really enjoy Halloween and go out for it.
All right, Jeff, when did you stop dressing up for Halloween? Or do you still do it?
I stopped dressing up for Halloween maybe when I was 16 years old, although when my wife drags me to Halloween parties, when she was in business school, I dressed up quite a few times, usually as rock and roll figures. I dressed up once as David Bowie from Aladdin Sane with the lightning bolt thing across my face and the red hair. And then I did another one as David Bowie from the cover of Heroes, which is, if you've ever seen that album. But beyond that, I don't do that kind of stuff anymore because I'm a man now with a job and self-respect.
Yeah.
But mostly because I'm lazy.
Bill, what was your last costume?
My last
other than serious business professional that you're dressed up as now.
Yeah, right. My last costume.
Yeah, he wears that costume.
This is my costume. Yeah.
He pretends to be a serious person every day.
Oh yeah. I just walk around screaming at people on the subway, "You're fired!" when I'm in this. It's great. I feel like I have a lot of authority. My last costume was my wife was pregnant with our first child, and she went as an oven, and I went as a baker, and that was it.
A little risque, a little suggestive there, Bill, for a Catholic.
Yeah. Well, we're married, so Joe, I have a theory about this, and Sean alluded to it earlier when he was talking about Arrested Development, and that's people who had happy childhoods don't cling to childlike activities like dressing up on Halloween. So you're the resident conspiracy theorist. Will you back me up here in guessing that some of this has to do with divorce and the crumbling nature of American households, and people are just trying to, grasp back to what was supposed to be a happy childhood memory that couldn't be because of family strife.
Actually, my argument for adults dressing up on Halloween is the fact that Halloween is a fall, it's a harvest kind of holiday, and let's face it, unless it's a Farmville app on their phone, kids aren't harvesting shit. The adults have to go out there and do all the work, and that includes dressing up on a harvest holiday. By the way, the last time I dressed up for Halloween was actually last Tuesday.
And what were you? Oh, yeah, but you're a school teacher.
That's true, and tomorrow I'm actually going to dress up as a student. I'm going to go in full school uniform, including the nice little plaid skirt.
This is going to work out well.
I'd like to stand up for Halloween, and I would like to stand up for fun, and I would like to stand up for America here. I'll tell you a story. My husband last year wore a full-size chicken outfit when we went trick-or-treating, and it was amazing. And I cannot tell you how much joy he brought to the little children.
You mean like looking like the San Diego chicken, like the full?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Like the webbed feet. Different. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, thumbs up to grown-ups in costumes. I'm going to take that controversial.
Did he have to rent that? I mean, what did he do?
He ordered it on Amazon.com for like $25.99. It was a little bit dicey.
I'd like for a friend of mine to dress up as a giant chicken so that I could dress up as Peter Griffin, and we just go out into the middle of a busy trick-or-treating street and just have a major fight and confuse the kids.
Yeah, do it during school, right? Giant chicken kicks in your classroom door.
I'll get a coworker to dress up as a chicken. I'll dress up as Peter Griffin. We have actually a fall carnival tomorrow, so maybe we can pull this off. And we'll just go in the middle of the gym during the fall carnival, and we'll just start fighting each other. Kids are going to be confused. The principal's running out. School resource officer tasing us. It's going to be a great time.
Get dragged across the room by the school resources officer, right? And then everyone will have their iPhones out to take camera, and then it's going to show up on Twitter. Right.
Got the laugh down.
Next viral sensation. That's right.
I went as Bob's Big Boy one year with the full overalls and everything,
nice.
Giant mask. But everyone thought that I was being very offensive when I started using the line from I Am Sam with Sean Penn when he's like, I want to go see Bob. I want to go see Bob's Big Boy. Did anyone get that?
No, because nobody saw that movie.
Yeah, because no one got it that night out either.
The full retard joke.
I'll tweet out the clip.
There you go. This will change everything now.
By the way,
have it on Twitter.
Bill, our friend Brent Cochran says that I should dress up as Jonathan Papelbon and just choke random people.
That's great.
You know.
Yeah, you absolutely should.
I could do it.
See, and I mean, this is one of the things that happens every single year during Halloween. Somebody, I mean, we just had it the other day with somebody, with a white guy dressing up as Kanye West. And, of course, the pitchforks came out for racist costumes and everything like that. I don't really know where I'm going here. Is it racist? I don't know. Maybe we should stop dressing up and pretending to be other people. And maybe we won't have these controversies anymore. Or does Twitter need these controversies to exist? Feel free, anybody.
That would be Tumblr that needs controversy to exist. Tumblr needs these controversies. Twitter is there for us to talk politics and yell at each other and block each other eventually. Tumblr exists for outrage and also people who are transabled, trans-ethnic, and consider themselves to have otherkin, imaginary figures in their heads that make them feel better about themselves.
I want to change the subject here and just bring up another must-have Halloween costume that everyone should have in their closet, in their arsenal. So also on Amazon.com, you can get a full Bigfoot costume, and this is only I think it's like $45. And this is a great child discipline tool because what you do if your kids are bad, you tell them Bigfoot's coming, and then you go get the costume, and then you wander out, and there you go. It'll work for at least 5 years or so. Just FYI, pro tip, Bigfoot.
See, so that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with costumes, especially if you're using them to terrify children. I'm specifically saying that stuff is wrong when you're hijacking the holiday. you know, like SantaCon is another one. You guys know about SantaCon, or is it just in New York? It's like a bunch of drunks just walk around dressed as Santa Claus and like jump onto taxi cabs and riot in the streets.
That's the most New York thing I've ever heard in my life.
And don't get me wrong, I like rioting. Like I hope there's a riot that I can participate in if the Mets are able to prevail in the World Series. But do we have to do it in a Santa outfit too? I understand like it'll be harder for the cops to ID you if you're wearing sweet white beard. But yeah, costumes, I don't know. Scaring children, okay, but taking away their holiday is just awful to me. We're wrapping up here. I feel like I'm drowning every single week that I guest host here for Leon. We always have trouble closing out the show.
Close this out real quick. There's a news story that circulated. It ties in the story of Walmart pulling the Israeli soldier costume off the shelves.
Right.
That has to be the most fantastic thing, and I wish I had one of these costumes.
Yeah, do they come in adult sizes? I bet they do. I bet they have more adult Israeli soldier costumes than they do children's ones.
I'm not sure. It did cost around $28 though. The only pictures you see are the kids' version, if there is an adult version. And once again, it seems to be pro-Muslim activists that ruin everything. Let's just acknowledge that real quick.
It can be. I mean, like Jehovah's Witness also hate Halloween, and they'll help ruin that. So, I mean, that's always good.
I got nothing else. It's your
trick or
turn.
treating. That's yeah. Well, going back to politics, I think the most underappreciated story of the week is going to drop tomorrow, and it is the Washington Free Beacon is releasing an exclusive line of Hillary Clinton costumes for Halloween. So I think that's publishing tomorrow morning. I think you guys should all check it out. These are the only costumes that I would advocate coming solely and only in adult sizes, because kids wearing them would just be subject to too many death threats. Heather, are you going into your kid's school? Do they like force you to do anything like that?
You mean in costume?
Yeah.
No, disappointingly, no. I mean, that's a great idea, but no.
So only your friends and your neighbors get to see you wearing your sweet witch's hat and KKK robe?
Maybe what I should do is do Bigfoot with a witch's hat, which would be sort of taking it to 11 a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, if I can interrupt here for a second, and I was reminded of this when you spoke about talking about wearing costumes. I remember a video, very disturbing video, that was recently posted to the Free Beacon website, where there was a man with a sack on his head waterboarding, who I believe may have been Andrew Stiles. I believe that was part of Biff Diddle's interrogation of people related to the Andrew Stiles Donald Trump debacle, and I was wondering if Biff Diddle's investigations had turned up anything with respect to finding the greater culpability for that donor scandal that rocked the Free Beacon to its core and may have actually threatened its existence.
Yeah, we're not commenting at this point, but we are going to leak a policy memo to Politico tomorrow detailing how we're going to go full negative on Andrew Stiles. And direct our billions.
I was concerned that the investigation might have just disappeared and that you were burying the evidence.
No.
It had the feel of like an IRS whitewash, so I was concerned.
No. The investigation didn't disappear. Only Sonny Bunch has disappeared thus far.
Why are you guys trying to whitewash your support for Donald Trump? I think you should just embrace it.
We should.
How about, Bill, instead of selling Hillary Clinton costumes, why don't you guys get one of the Make America Great Again hats and have Biff Diddle autograph and then auction it off, and then give the profits to a conservative charity?
Oh, you mean like a Tea Party group that's going to help appoint Trey Gowdy into the speaker?
Perfect. Sold. Let's do it.
Race? Yeah, well, let's send our money there. All right, well, unless anyone has anything else, I'm going to close out here. What are you guys thinking? My costume is going to be Andrew Stiles. Nice.
I need to get building my robotic pantsuit. for my Halloween costume.
Yeah, Mecha Hillary is going to be a big hit next year.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be great. Or Hannibal Lecter Hillary, with just the mask on. All right, well, I'm Bill McMorris from the Washington Free Beacon. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. Big thank you to my guests, Heather Wilhelm and Sean Saffron from the Federalist, Joy Blehar of Ace of Spades Decision Desk, and Joe Cunningham stepping up. Thank you so much, as always, Joe. And he is from redstate.com. This has been the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. Tune in next week and watch me take over for Leon full time.